Hello, everyone. I think we can get started, okay? Good morning. My name is Valentina Sannino. I'm the Market Intelligence Deputy Coordinator of the EUMOFA, the EUMOFA project, the EUMOFA Observatory, which stands for European Market Market Observatory for Fishery and Aquaculture Products. EUMOFA is a market intelligence tool in place since more than 15 years now, that has as its main objective to increase market transparency. We deliver on our website several data and information and studies along the supply chain of fishery and aquaculture products in the EU and in the world. I'm here with my colleague Stefania that will distribute some flyers explaining what we do and some examples of our study. And today I'm here with this is a tool of the European Commission, and I'm here with the responsible of the project, which is Mr. Christophe van der WEYER from the European Commission Policy Officer. And I'm also here with our three speakers that will provide their insights on this interesting topic regarding the evolution of EU consumer behavior, especially towards consumption of sustainable fish, how sustainability is perceived and appreciated from consumers. They are Professor Sterenn from the Institute Agro. And from the industry, we have Daniel Voces from Europêche and Mr. Roberto Alonso from ANFACO-CECOPESCA. I would like to leave the floor to Mr. van der WEYER from the Commission to introduce this workshop that I'm going to moderate and explain something more regarding the relevance of sustainability for this sector. Please.
Thank you, Valentina, and thank you all for being here today. Let me introduce this talk with a reference to the recent Eurobarometer that the European Commission carried out a few months ago on the consumption of fishery and aquaculture products in the EU. It may be that, well, I hope that some of you already had a look at this Eurobarometer. The main objective of this survey is to better understand consumers' habits and perceptions regarding their consumption of fishery and aquaculture products in the 27 member states. In fact, the Commission carries out such study every 2 or 3 years, so that also makes it possible to analyze and understand developments and evolution over time. The main learning of the latest Eurobarometer is that, and this is similar to the previous surveys that were carried out, the two main drivers for the buying decision are price and appearance of the fishery and aquaculture products. However, for the first time, and this is to be underlined, price has become the main driver of the consumption decision over the visual appeal of the product. We also note that sustainability considerations, such as environmental and ethical impacts, remain secondary in the consumer's choices, but, and we want to underline this, they are progressively gaining preference. So we see that study after study that these factors are more and more important in the purchasing decision. And this will be our main subject of discussion today. So we don't have time to go much further into the main findings of this Eurobarometer, but I really invite you to dig into this study. It's very easily available. It's public information. So today we would like to focus more particularly on the consumption of what is perceived to be sustainable products. We will do that around 3 topics: the consumer uptake of sustainable fishery and aquaculture products, the consumers' interest and knowledge about sustainability in fishery and aquaculture products and its impact on purchasing behavior and the promotion of fishery and aquaculture products. And to do that, we have indeed, as Valentina said, a high-level panel of sector representatives. Many thanks for having accepted our invitation to speak today and express your views in the framework of this EUMOFA talk. So I will now give you the floor to present yourself so that we understand also better in which way you look at the question of sustainability. Thank you very much.
I think we can start with Professor Voces. You are borrowing his microphone. It's okay. Please.
So my name is Sterenn. I'm an associate professor in economics at l'Institut Agro in France. And my research focuses on consumer behavior in regard of sustainable consumption of seafood product.
So you were the perfect speaker for this talk.
We will see. I hope so.
You have the microphone.
Yep.
Please go ahead.
First, so thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to EUMOFA. Thank you all for being with us today. My name is Roberto Alonso. I'm the Secretary General of ANFACO-CECOPESCA, which is the 121 years old association of Spain dedicated to fish processing. Also, we are part of IFC, the European Association of Fish Processors, like by presidents, also president of Eurozone dedicated to tuna. Our work is dedicated just to improve the sector through competitiveness, internationalization, exports, R&D, and of course market statistics and consumer behavior. So we're happy to be here to help you or view from the processing side about the new trends and the consumer behavior for the next years to come. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Voces. I'm the Managing Director of Europêche. So, as Europêche, we are the main industry representative organization in Europe, representing national associations of fishing vessel owners. And our main role is advocacy and promote policies that allow the fishing industry to thrive and to remain competitive, while our commitment towards environmental sustainability is undeniable, because that's the future. Of course, one important element in our work is how consumers are reacting to policies and how the consumption is being perceived by them and how they are evolving over time. And so obviously for us it's very important and relevant to be engaged in this discussion. Thank you.
Okay, so as Christophe said, we have decided to divide this workshop into three main topics. The first one is the actual uptake of sustainable fish from consumer. So to do so, I would like to ask the first question to Mr. Alonso, as he's involved in the, as he said, in the industry of canned and fish and seafood. And I was about to ask him if he saw some change in the behavior of consumers regarding consumption of this type of products, if the sustainable products is actually preferred, or is it, and if so, is it if there are different patterns across the EU?
Yeah, thank you. Probably when we talk about consumers, it's a very general word, because we all know that the consumers depends on the segment, of the kind, even the country, the place of the country, the richness, a lot of things involved of what we call consumers. But also the difference between, for example, Spain, Italy, Portugal, compared to Netherlands, Germany, for example, in Europe is clearly different. But of course, certain trends are happening, yes. And these trends is being guided by the change in how we are taking our societies in today. Digitalization is something that you hear a lot of times, a mobile phone with us, less time, change in the lifestyle, something that you are probably tired of hearing a lot of conferences that we don't have time to cook. This is affecting how we live and of course how we consume, in this case the fishery products. The Euromaro method, like Christophe exposed in the beginning, shows clearly what are the main needs when you're buying something. And we need to understand the consumption in the period of time where we are. It's not the same 20 years ago than today. So I think that the first advice and the first suggestion is what we need to consider as strategies as companies, depending on the period of time we are. We are in a cost competitive period of time. It's sadly to say, but it is where we are. A lot of you that study strategy, two main general topics there are cost competitiveness and differentiation. Differentiation added value, that's quite well in certain niche markets. You can go to mass consumption in periods of wealthy. But today, we are seeing just the opposite, a very pressure on costs, inflation rises in Europe. For example, the cost of households highs. So what we're seeing in Eurobarometer, the price is the top key driver of consumption. So are changes? Yes. Are something surprising? Probably not. The question is how we're going to tackle these elements, because now we have the challenge to achieve in the fishery sector a sustainable sector for the future. We need to stock sustainable, we need our companies to remain competitive, and of course to fight against unfair competition. So my suggestion and our view is that we think Daniel, my colleague, expressed in the beginning, we need to reinforce of policies, to design good policies, but also to design good control and surveillance resources from the administrations in certain markets. That's another topic. Because the consumer needs confidence when buying a product, needs to be sure that it's sustainable, has or not a logo, and look to what's happening, for example, in the canned tuna in certain countries like Spain. The retailer brand is growing above 80% of the total share. Retailer's brand. So what is this market telling us? The consumer is the cost competitive, needs quality, please don't mess with them. And of course, and to finalize my intervention in sustainable, I think something that we need to do, and yes, is to fight for a free market, but with clear principles and rules for differentiation, because there are opportunities, yes. In the HoReCa sector, the Eurobarometer is telling us we need to increase the experience. We can collaborate with local producers, we can collaborate in short value chains, yes, there's opportunities. But we need to differentiate these opportunities, experience opportunities, with the global market. I know this has been a general reprise, but if we have time, we can go.
Yeah, and regarding these challenges you are mentioning, I was in fact asked a second question: which are the barriers that the industry is facing? You know, from the industry side, how could this be overcome? If he mentioned some, what do you think, Mr.?
Yeah, no, thank you. A very good question. For me, the first barrier is the concept of sustainability. And I think this is nothing new for everyone in the room. Sustainability is really complex. And there's a lack of clarity, I think, for many consumers on what this means in reality. Actually, when I ask this question in the European Union, there's no a law that is telling you sustainability is the following. It doesn't exist. So it's a little bit of a subjective concept. And then I find that for consumers it may be difficult to differentiate between the different sustainability claims, eco-labeling standards and certifications, etc. And this confusion can actually create this mistrust or apathy in purchasing the decisions. Additionally, certified products may be seen as a consumer as expensive. And Roberto, he was mentioning this before. We are guided nowadays by a society based on prices more than sustainability, as we can see when they purchase the product. So this is a little bit concerning because we're talking about food sovereignty a lot lately, and actually building these objectives into production costs and producing less and more expensive, that can create a little bit of problem. Then it's difficult to put in a label the three dimensions of sustainability, because when we talk about sustainability, many may think about environmental sustainability, but of course we need to look at the three pillars, and putting all this information in one label may be really challenging. And then more generally, there's the societal debate on how to feed the population in a sustainable manner. And then there's this discussion between plant-based and meat. Mm-hmm. And the issue that I see is that fish sometimes or most of the times comes into the meat group. And I think we have developed the sector so much, and we are offering such an amazing protein, which is fish, which is really good for our health and with a low environmental impact, and this also needs to be taken into consideration. So in order to overcome these challenges or to make some steps, I think we need to differentiate two different approaches. The first one is the industry perspective. I think that as our companies, they need to focus on clear and consistent communication about what sustainable practices are, how they do this, and how they implement this in practice, and why they matter. The second is educational campaigns about sustainability, what they're doing, simple labeling, storytelling about this is our product, it comes from here, and we're doing these practices, and that is how we are contributing to society. And for consumers more interested in more information, then digital tools, I think, are the way forward, with QR codes about traceability, properties, sustainability information, without overwhelming the package. Then from a public policy perspective, I think this is public authorities, they also have a role to play. And the first one is the concept of sustainability and why our policies, for instance, European policies, are making this product sustainable, and why European seafood is a synonym of sustainability. And second, I think public authorities, they also have to work a little bit on the many myths that we are seeing in the media. For instance, that 90% of the stocks are either overfished or fully exploited, giving the impression that 90% is overexploited. Myths about tuna is on the verge of depletion in many areas of the world, or that bottom trawling is actually depleting the ocean. So I think as public authorities, they also need to do some work on this, because at the end of the day, this creates more standards, more certifications, more policies for the industry, and this comes with a cost, and then the effort is not recognized by anyone. And finally, perhaps a mention about more legislation to control environmental claims, and I think the European Union is making a good step forward on this, and perhaps the marketing standards to ensure a level playing field, that all products traded in the EU that we believe are sustainable, they comply with the same standards, and perhaps in that element to reinforce the consumer information. Thank you.
So this links to another question I was asking, like all these policy changes, do you think consumer demand is driving them, and if so, how?
Well, in fact, we strongly believe that it is indeed the demand that can drive consumptions towards more sustainable behaviors, because, as you know, in the EU, 70% of the fishery and aquaculture products that we consume are imported from third countries. So we cannot only rely on our producers, on our fishers to supply the market with sustainable products. We must also make sure that the whole supply is made of sustainable products. And at global level, at the same time, the EU represents 5 to 6% of the global production of aquatic food. So this is also not where we can have the most important impact. But at the same time, we are one of the largest markets in the world. So this is where we can really have an impact. And this is where, and I think I would repeat what has just been said, consumer information is very important. And as a regulatory body, we have put in place a legal framework that provides for specific information that comes on top of the general information on foodstuff that are put on the market, that are specific to fishery and aquaculture products, and aim at driving consumers towards more sustainable choices, making them aware of the production methods, of the provenance of the products, but also a clear or strict framework for voluntary labeling. Because one thing is to leave it to the operators to put eco-labels, sustainability claims, etc., to allow for differentiation. But at the same time, we must have a sufficiently robust legal framework to make sure that those claims, they are not misleading, they can be verified, and they are robust. So this is our role in terms of a regulatory body, but we strongly believe that it is indeed by driving the demand towards more sustainable product that we can have an impact, including at global level due to our weight on the global market for fishery and aquaculture products.
And as we listened from you before, you are saying Eurobarometer survey emerged that sustainability is actually increasing motivation year by year to purchase fish. So this leads, which leads me to the second topic, which is consumer actual interest in this aspect. So do you think that consumer habits are actually motivated to buy fish when it's sustainable, and if so, what aspects regarding sustainability they are looking for? Because as Daniel said, it could be environmental, but also spatial, economic.
Yes, so consumers do have a concern about environmental issue, about sustainable issue when they buy seafood. But as it has been said, what we found in our research is that price and convenience remains the main motivation to buy seafood, and sustainability cannot lead them to switch to a less favored species, for example. But it's remain important, and it's something that grew up in the following generation, because we have differences between generation in regard of sustainable preferences. It's true in terms of the youngest generation are more demanding for environmental claims or label. We didn't define that, but I would say claims are general information about environmental dimension about the product. And so the youngest generation are more demanding about this kind of information than the older generation. And the older generation are more interested in the economic dimension when it comes to sustainability. And the youngest generation are more interested in the environmental dimension. And the animal welfare, we didn't speak about it until now, but it's something that grew up within the youngest seafood consumer. They are concerned about the animal welfare dimension in sustainability. That's something that we cannot find with the oldest generation. Something that is really interesting when we talk about sustainability for the consumer, it's also that behind environmental dimension, we have two motivations behind. We have the pure environmental dimension and the health dimension that is really linked with the environmental motivation. And in that case, it's really important to look at what kind of product we are looking at, because if the pollution that came from the production of a seafood is in the other side of the world, it's more complicated for the consumer to take it into account when he will buy it, because it will have no impact on itself. But if the pollution is linked with the consumption, what we have, for example, in some product in aquaculture, both motivations are really, really linked, and in that case, it's consumer will need less altruist motivation to buy sustainable seafood. So it's something complex that have been said, but it's something that consumers are concerned about, and it's going to grow up, as it has been said in his study. But in our study, we found that it's something that the youngest generation are really pay attention to that.
And this, of course, from the supply side means more strategies should be adapted from the industry side to developing products and marketing strategies. Consumers need to be able to pay a price premium if they want to buy sustainably sourced fish and seafood. So my questions for you two is: are they willing to pay this price premium? Do you see that, and do you see consumer understand that this means more costs from the supply side? You choose who wants to intervene first.
I will start perhaps with the second question. So to a certain extent, yes, they're impacting the consumer choices. They're impacting the way we are producing and operating. That is undeniable. As we could see in the Eurobarometer, we see that there's a segment, and specifically the younger generations, that are more concerned about environmental and social issues, and they're gradually influencing how we operate, of course. So there's a clear shift from the operational side on how we do things, and more there's more traceability, more transparency, more accountability across the supply chain, and companies, of course, are investing in innovation. In our case, as fishing vessels, everything that is related to environmental sustainability and to minimize impact in our operations, for instance, more advanced fishing gears, more advanced engines, etc., reduction of bycatch. And then when it comes to traceability, more and more we're using digital tools for operations at sea, but also to ensure traceability across the supply chain, and even blockchain technologies. So the idea is obviously to enhance the environmental performance and traceability that is showing not only our commitment to the environment, but also to provide this added value in the eyes of the consumers. And of course, this is also changing the marketing strategies of our companies. The brands, they are more and more highlighting responsible sourcing, ethical concerns, social equity, and contributions to the oceans. And these elements, of course, are not only there to meet the consumer demands, but also, and you've been mentioning this before, to have a clear differentiate strategy from other companies, and to build trust with the consumer. However, I think the data is clear. The consumers, what are looking first and most is the price, and well, unfortunately, we are in a situation where there's a lot of inflation. The energy prices are skyrocketing, and of course, this is affecting the budgets of the households. So obviously, they will look for a price, and I'm not entirely sure whether they can recognize all these efforts behind the sustainability. The sustainability efforts of the industry, and whether they are ready to pay an extra price for that. I think the Eurobarometer looked into this question before, and the willingness in the end from the consumer to pay an extra for this is not always there, unfortunately.
Yes, I would like to be more, I don't know if it's pragmatic, but probably our experience is that, first of all, regarding sustainability, there are a lot of debates, but we need to be quite clear. The stocks are sustainable is their non-IUU fishing. The IUU regulation in Europe is one of the best in the world. It's not IUU. That stock is going to be sustainable. End of questioning. In the social aspects, now we have the EU forced labor regulation that's going to be into force in next years to come. Is no forced labor? Probably is going to be social sustainable, probably. And other things we can discuss. Okay, and from the economic point of view, it's a very complex issue related to the WTO, World Trade Organization, the possibility that we have to put barriers, technical barriers in certain markets, but probably the duties is going to solve that equilibrium. What I try to say is that sustainable is something that needs to come from legislation and then to surveillance and control. The problem is that today, and it's very good that we as a sector are trying to differentiate in the market using tools. You have drivers, trends. Healthy is one of them. Sustainable is another tool. That's why we need clear rules to differentiate, not to induce the confusion in the consumers. But the problem is that these strategies are going, if you allow me, when you are a consumer, why do you buy something? Because it provides to you some added value. Okay, that's a general concept. And what is added value? You like it? It's tasty? Probably, if they do a good campaign, you know it's healthy or not for your health. So you are, where is you are well to take care of yourself? Somebody does not care. So you're, because it's good for my health, and then comes sustainable. And for me, sustainable, if you took the Maslow pyramid, sustainable is more aspirational. It's in the top. It's not like in the base. It's not like living, being healthy. No, it's making the top. And that's the problem. The problem is that sustainability perceived by the consumer is something aspirational. It's something that I'm doing because I think it's better. That's why price is always first. And that's why our research shows that probably the consumer is not willing to pay more than 10% in difference from sustainable and non-sustainable. Well, sustainable eco-labeling, I mean, because we need to ensure that they are sustainable. I mean, sustainable perceived from a marketing differentiation to generate better approaches, better collaborations, better even that the standard legislation should apply and should apply in the resources. Just to finalize, that's why the consumer are willing to pay certain niche that is aspirational, that's the wealthy to pay for. But the problem is that we go into a general approach, these sustainable differentiations put a lot of pressure on the prices, you're losing the market. That's the challenge that we're facing today. But of course, we need to be sustainable. Yes, the rules are there, the legislation are there, and the surveillance and control. And our future as companies needs to have stable supply. So we need sustainable, of course. But the problem is how to take this advantage from the market.
Regarding promotion of this sustainable product, I'd like to ask to Ms. Luca, did you see how eco-labeling is actually changing the behaviors? Do you have some examples of that?
There is some deployment of eco-labeling on the market that are quite successful in food in general. And in seafood, we see the MAC, for example, that is well present in the market. And that is the most famous one among consumers. They are kind of starting to know it. It's not as much as organic labeling, for example, which has really, really highest level of recognition, but it's starting to be recognized. And it switched consumer. But when we have to keep in mind when we have labeling in terms of economic perspective for the consumers, when consumer make a purchase decision, it will do it based on the attribute of the product, as we are saying, price and so on. And there is some attribute that the consumer is able to evaluate before to buy the product. That's what we call search attribute. There is such some attribute that the consumer is able to evaluate only after purchasing the product. It's the experience attribute, like taste. And there is some attribute that the consumer is never able to evaluate. That's the sustainable dimension, because if a fish comes from a sustainable managed stock, it will taste the same that a fish that comes from non-well managed stock. And the consumer is not able to evaluate that at any point. That's why we use labeling, because it helps us to transform from a consumer perspective when he purchases the product, to transform what we call credence attribute or trust attribute into a search attribute. But it remains not a direct search attribute in the sense that trust is going to be fundamental when the consumer is going to purchase. And when we are talking about willingness to pay more, we need to be really, really trusty if we want to pay more for something that we will not be able to verify by ourselves. So that's something that helps the consumer to take those dimensions into account, because it's impossible for the consumer to be specialized in all the foods and to be able to say that this fish comes from a sustainable stocks because it comes from this zone or stuff like that. It's not able. It's too complicated for all the foods that we consume. That's why we need label, and that's all it helps consumer to make better decision.